Hello everyone, welcome back. In this video, we're going to be talking about multiplying and dividing significant figures. I did a video on how to identify significant figures and how to round significant figures. And we're going to be applying those concepts in this video. So if you haven't seen those videos yet, please be sure to do so. Let's begin. There's only one rule for multiplying and dividing significant figures, and it states use the least amount of significant figures as your final answer. So we're going to cover a few examples to put this into practice. So let's begin. In our first example, we have 4.5 times 11.41. The first thing you have to do is solve it no different than any other math problem. So you would get 51 decimal 345. The rule says use the least amount of significant figures, but how do we determine that? You do so by looking at the numbers that you multiply. So in here you have 4.5 times 11.41. 4.5 has two significant figures. 11.41 has four significant figures. This means that your final answer has to be rounded to the least amount of significant figures, which in this case is the 2. The 4.5, which has two significant figures. So now all we have to do is round our final answer to two significant figures. We know that the 5 is significant, the 1 is significant. So is it 51? Not quite. In order to have a final answer, we have to look at the number next to the 1, because the 1 is our second significant figure, and all we need is 2. But in order to properly round, we have to look at the next number. In this case, it's a 3. The rule says if it's 5 or greater, you round up. If it's less than 5, you stay the same. So the 3 is less than 5, so our final answer will be 51. Let's move on to the next problem. Here we have a division problem, 5.3 divided by 50. We know that the 5.3 has two significant figures. And here we have a 50. If you saw my other video, you will know that these zeros are trailing zeros. And trailing zeros are never significant except if a decimal is present. The fact that we have a decimal here makes the other zeros significant. So here we have three significant figures. So let's solve 5.3 divided by 50. You should get 106. Now the rule says use the least amount of significant figures to round off your final answer. So between 3 and 2, 2 is the least significant amount. So our final answer has to have two significant figures. Okay, so the 1 is significant, the 0 is significant because zeros in between non-zero digits are significant. So if there's a 0 in between non-zero digits, they're always significant. So our 0 is our second and final significant figure, which all we have to do now is look at the next number to round properly. So the 6 is greater than 5. Therefore, our final answer will be 11 because the 0 becomes a 1 because of the 6. So your answer is decimal 11 or 0.11. Both of these numbers are the same, the leading zeros are never significant. So even though you have three numbers here, there's only two significant figures, which is what we want. Let's move on to the next problem. Here we have 0.738 times 0.28. So the first step is simple. Solve it the way you would normally solve it. You should get 0.20664. That's what you would normally get if you plug it into a calculator or if you solve it yourself. Now, let's see how many significant figures are being multiplied. In this first example, we have a leading zero, and leading zeros are never significant. So we're not going to count this zero. Our first non-zero digit is the 7. That is significant. The 3 is significant. The 8 is significant. So in this, we have 3 significant figures. Here we have 0.28. Leading zeros are never significant. So here we only have 2 significant figures. And we're going to use the least of the 2. In this case, the 2 is less than 3. So our final answer needs to be rounded off to 2 significant figures. Let's do that. Leading zeros, never significant, but we need them because they are placeholders. So the 2 is 1 significant figure. A 0 in between non-zero digits are always significant. So we have our 2 significant figures there. All we have to do now is round. And to do that, all we have to look is at the number next to the 0, which is the 6. And if it's greater than 5, we round up. If it's less than 5, we round down. So our final answer will be 0.21 or 21. Same thing. So let's see if you can try and solve this one. And we'll do it together. Feel free to pause. Let's begin. First things first, let's solve it. You should get So you should get 6.19047619. All right. Now the next thing you have to do is see which of these two has the least amount of significant figures. We know that the 1 is significant, the 3 is significant. Here we have a trailing 0, which normally is never significant. But because there's a decimal present, it becomes significant. So here we have 3 significant figures. And now we look at the next example. We have decimal 210. We have a trailing 0, which is normally never significant. But because there's a decimal present, it becomes significant. So here we also have 3 significant figures, which means that this final answer needs to be rounded to 3 significant figures. So we have 1, 2, 3. And before we leave that as our final answer, we look at the number next to the 9. It's a 0, it's less than 5, so the 9 stays. So our final answer will be 6.19. I hope this video helped you out. If it did, please subscribe and like, and I'll see you in the next video.